Coming at you live from CBT Studios in the heart of Roseville, California. I'm your host, Andrew, and with me as always are my co-hosts,
Matt,
Roger,
and this is the Cryptid vs. Cryptid podcast. Now play that zany music.
All right, I hope you got your crack in there because I totally missed the cue. I was taking a sip from my mics, and since we don't hear each other do the crack or see each other do the crack, I was like, fuck, I totally missed the cue right there.
I got the crack in there. We're good.
I didn't even drink a soda, so.
Cool, let's get a second one going. All right. Fuck, I just spilled this shit all over myself.
Nice. All right. Starting our episode off with a bang, literally.
Very big bang. So.
Go
ahead.
I was just going to say, 1,000 download plus bang. That's what I'm going to say.
I know.
Bang, bang.
So, welcome everybody to our 1,000 download special. In this episode, we're just going to talk about shit. This episode's more focused towards people that have been following the podcast since we started back in last January. And this is just a special thank you to everybody. So we're going to be going through some stuff, and hopefully you like it. And if you're new here, don't start on this episode. Hop back, listen from episode 1 forward, and then come and join us here in our special thank you episode.
Yeah, this is going to be heavy spoilers for all the fights that have already happened, so you wouldn't want to listen to this one first.
And can I say, it's only been a little bit since we hit 1,000, and we're already at 1,250 downloads.
I know, we're a quarter of the way to the next milestone, and we are just getting out the 1,000 downloads.
We're just gamers, dude. What can I say?
We're gamers, and dare I say, we're podcasters as well.
We're starting to get to that point, bro. We're starting to become podcasters, and it's crazy.
I know, some big stuff coming up which we can't touch upon, but we're podcasters now.
Yeah, it's starting to seem real official.
Oh, yeah. So, thank you for the support, as always. And if you want to reach out to us on the show, have a good discussion, you got some stuff you want to point out, or you got some suggestions for future content, you can send us an email over at cryptidversuscryptid@gmail.com. That is
cryptidvscryptid@gmail.com.
all right. And with that out of the way, how about we get into some of the stuff we want to cover for our 1,000 download special?
Yeah, let's just start getting into it.
Let's kick it off with our favorite episode so far. Who wants to start us off here?
Let's go, Roger. Come on. What's your favorite episode?
I'm trying to choose. And it's either between our second or no. Yeah, no, the second one. The Michigan Dogman versus Wendigo. Or
I thought so.
Or Goatman versus El Chupacabra.
I didn't see that one coming.
What?
For one of your picks.
I did.
Well, I guess Goatman, yeah. Why those two?
Well, Goatman's just my favorite cryptid of all time. And then Wendigo's also, like, the second favorite. So just having those two to talk about are easily the best. And then, I don't know, those episodes just were more entertaining to me. I love the stories that went along with them.
I'm going to have to say I'm with you on that. I think that my all-time favorite so far is probably Goatman versus Chupacabra. Just because I thought that was one of the most interesting. Goatman, all his stories, that was great. And then Chupacabra and all the sightings and how we kind of did that one as well. Even the fight was interesting. That one was pretty awesome.
See, I'm on the fence because Goatman versus El Chupacabra is one of my all-time favorites for the same reason you guys said. And I also like how it wasn't just big, strong brawler versus big, strong brawler. But episode 5, our first cryptid mashup and rehash, is also one of my all-time favorites.
Devrin was pretty awesome to have on. So I will say that like the mashups I almost put in like a different category just because having the guest on there is like an entirely
Yeah, that one was such a big episode for us, I think, because also our first guest, and then that was our longest episode as far for like almost until then. But now we're kind of getting
at
the same
the time
length.
it had a good landslide of distance or length to it. Yeah, I don't know. I think if we take the mashups and rehashes out of it, I'm right there with you guys. Episode 4 has probably been my favorite so far. But if we're including the mashups and rehash, I like episode 5 a lot. And another thing, it's like once we did hit episode 5, it was kind of just a big turning point for me because it was like, all right, we're 5 episodes deep. We've invested a good amount into the podcast. I'm pretty committed at this point.
Yeah. At this point, we're all committed beyond anything.
Oh, yeah.
But definitely episode 5 was like, all right, we're having guests on. I think that was the first time we did it in the garage.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, no,
That's
we
when
had
we
set up the garage.
and then we had to wait for you to get home. So it was just me and Matt talking for a while, and for like our first Patreon thing.
Speaking of just talking in the garage, shout out to the couple that rolled up and asked us what we were doing and started listening to the podcast.
That was pretty epic.
That was probably one of my favorite moments of doing the podcast in general.
Yeah. Aside from emails, I think that was probably the favorite interaction. It was probably.
All right.
And I wasn't even there.
This isn't on the itinerary, and I'm pretty sure I can see this coming. But what's your guys' least favorite episode so far?
Give me a sec.
I'll start us off. I wasn't a big fan of Omnicook versus Ningen, just because it was such an easy wash. Ningen didn't really have anything. Omnicook had some stuff, but it wasn't like the most interesting stuff in the world. Loch Ness Monster versus Oklahoma Octopus also wasn't one of my favorites either. It was when we first tried to start that stuff out. But I know my least favorite of all time is probably going to be episode 3.
Yeah, I don't know why I had to think about it. Episode 3 is just my least favorite of all time. It will always remain that way. Another one, I was gonna say Loch Ness Monster and Oklahoma Octopus. Me, for personal reasons, but just there was no stories or anything we could go off of. I mean, maybe for Loch Ness, but literally nothing on Oklahoma Octopus. He was just another Dover Chew and Megacondo to me, and that was kind of disappointing.
I think I'm with you on those two, honestly. I did like the Amacook versus Ningen one, though. Personally, I thought that was kind of a fun episode.
I did like that episode, too. Mermaid versus Gator Man, too. For me, I just didn't like that episode.
That was going to be my third, for sure.
I don't know why. It just wasn't the episode for me.
I'm going to say it was probably one of our blandest episodes. It just had, like, this feeling of, like, not much super out of there. You know, everyone knows about mermaids, and Gator Man wasn't the most interesting cryptid. It just seemed like and then they fight in the water thing, so...
I would go Mermaid versus Gator Man, but I think it had an interesting comeback in the fight with Mermaid beating Gator Man, which I really appreciated, because it's like the big tank, the big brawler, actually does lose to the smarter fighter in that one. I didn't really like the Omnicook versus Ningen, though, just because it was such an easy wash in retrospect. I mean, obviously we did have some debate on it, but all in all, it was a pretty easy wash for Ningen, especially after you hear episode 10, our second mashup and rehash. And then as far as the Loch Ness Monster versus Oklahoma Octopus, like, yeah, there wasn't much on the Oklahoma Octopus, and a big thing that took it away for me was when you do research the Loch Ness Monster, and because we did bring stories to the table, it's just a lot of it were just hoaxes, and that really took it away for me.
It was hoaxes, but it was also just like unbelievable stories. The one, it was like firefighters were trying to make a female Nessie, and they were trying to lure her out or whatever. It was just weird.
And a lot of the stories for Loch Ness they just weren't interesting at all. They were just like boring sightings.
It makes it pretty obvious that the picture was kind of like the inciting incident, and then everything kind of evolved from that, as versus like, oh, tales evolving into something.
But I mean, for all of us, I'm pretty sure episode 3 will be the crown victor and least favorite all the time.
By far.
That one just
Not
that one
only
really makes
did
me
it
cringe.
suck, just all around, I'm pretty sure it's our shortest episode as well.
It is.
Because we've gotten good at, like, extending the episodes without, like, a lot of information to go on with the cryptids. But this was before we were good at doing that. And so it's just super short episode, and there's not
55
much.
minutes. There's not any other episode that we've ever done that's gone below an hour. First episode was exactly 1 hour.
Yeah, no, that one's just forever gonna be the lowest tier of anything we've done so far.
It was sad because I was so hyped up for it. Because I liked the thought of the Megaconda, but when you get into researching them,
I did
there was
too.
like
but
nothing.
There's literally
And
nothing.
then over 2 hours, like, oh, okay, this could be cool. It's a folklore, so it should be good. And then there was literally one fucking story, and that was it.
I mean, I'll give it to the one story. It is a good story, but it's like you said, that's the only story it's really got.
Yeah, so we had one story for that whole episode, and that's just not gonna work out.
No, not at all. I mean, I'm sure we could turn it around if we were to redo it right now, but as far as right now, it's definitely the worst, and it will remain the worst probably till the end of the podcast.
But I'm glad that we got it out of the way at episode 3, and it's not like the worst is yet to come.
Oh, yeah. All right. And from moving to our talk of favorite and least favorite episodes, let's move over to more favorite and least favorite. Let's talk of our top 5 most favorite cryptids that we've covered so far. Who wants to start us off?
Your boy's gonna have to take it away.
All right, hit us with it.
All right. So my top 5 aren't in any specific order. I just like these 5 cryptids. I have 1, the Thunderbird, 2, Goatman, 3, Dogman, 4, Amacook, and then 5 is Chupacabra.
Want to give us any insight into the mind of Andrew on why you pick some of these cryptids?
Thunderbird, I just think over time, like, I've always thought Thunderbird was cool, and I like the idea of like lightning and stuff in general, but like, and I just think it's sick. Goatman, stories wise, probably one of my favorite. I mean, we went over it's probably my favorite episode, so, but like the things that we found out about Goatman and how much lore he has is so sick, and that was just such a fun time. Dogman, that photo, and then the stories that we had for him too, I think kind of rival Goatman for me, almost. Like how Roger was saying that was his other favorite episode was Wendigo versus Dogman. I think I'm probably there too, just because I think Dogman was pretty interesting to read about, and the story about the guy getting out and like we were all freaking out about it.
The one where he's like the security guard.
No, the guy gets out of the car. When he's
truck.
driving and he sees it, and he keeps walking into the, and we were like, oh my god,
That
bro.
still gives me shivers in my spine when I think about it.
Bro. And then the Amacook, I think, is top for me just because I think of how much of a wash it was. I think he's just kind of like the OP protagonist of the second season, basically.
Oh, 100%.
The Chupacabra, I think, I went over this a little bit, but all the like sightings that we had and how there's a whole fake like a lizardy one that we were like, okay, we're not going to go with this one because it's not as original, or unless did we go with
the lizard one was the original.
Yeah,
we
we
didn't
went
the
with
lizard
the
was
dog.
the real one.
Chupacabra.
Sorry. Yeah, so the dog, the like mangled dog was the one that we didn't go with. I just think like how there's 2 iterations essentially, and how there's like a new age and an old age for that type of thing, and how no one's actually cited him, so it's all word of mouth. Like, I think that's awesome as well. But yeah, those probably top 5 so far. I mean, there's others that I enjoy talking about, but I think those five are probably my favorite. Like the Jersey Devil was cool and stuff, but
All right. You or me, Roger? Who's going next?
I'll go next. Obviously, number one for me is Goatman. There's no contest whatsoever. Besides Wendigo. Wendigo's like Goatman and Wendigo are so tied for me. After that, it goes Dogman, and then Jersey Devil. Goatman, the one story about the little girl and him like mimicking the dad's voice and then breaking down the door and throwing shit everywhere, that was such a good story, and that kind of like for me just opened my eyes to Goatman. And then researching that guy was one of my favorite things of all time. Because I got so much.
Goatman.
Yeah.
That story is like, if we were to do like top 5 stories that we've brought to the table in the podcast, that one's probably number 1 for me. It's just such a fucking creepy story.
I'd probably put that and then the security guard story. That or the guy getting
Now,
his car.
now,
Those.
that's where Dogman comes in for me. Is that Dogman's security guard story? Just because of like that memory of us looking at the picture and being like, "Holy shit, this is fucking creepy."
That image is creepy as
It was
hell.
That's my favorite story. But second is Goatman, but Goatman's still my favorite. Wendigo, he also has some great stories out there. If you just look up on YouTube or hear podcasts about it, he has some great stories. Now it's more of like Skinwalker or Wendigo stories. You just gotta figure out which one. But at the end of the day, they're kind of both the same. So, I just like how media portrays them, I guess. I wish that the Pet Sematary movies would do a little more with Wendigo, because the book does. But he's just such a cool figure to me that he's just always going to be my second favorite. Dogman, basically a werewolf, but not at the same time. He's just epic. That picture, the stories that go along with it, with the farmer's grandson, and seeing the 3 cows' heads on his front doorstep, and then seeing Dogman run around. It's fucking great. Ningen, for me, I liked Ningen as kind of like a government cover-up story, and that's more of what he was. And so it was always just Japanese government trying to cover him up. They have all those pictures and all these stories of him, and what draws a cryptid to me is more like in-depth stories that are like, oh, this is what happens, or this is what's happening. And then Jersey Devil, I think for a basic cryptid for me, he's just like a top-notch story, because it goes back to like what is it called? I keep forgetting what those times were. The witch trials times. And so it's just kind of like a time for me where I look back in history and I'm like, wow, this is so fucked up. And then Jersey Devil's added on top of that.
Yeah, I was glad we finally got to talk about Jersey Devil, because I was one of the early on one of the ones we wanted to talk about, and we never did in the original lineup. Then we did the water season, so that pushed it back even further. So it was pretty nice getting to cover him like right away when we started this 3rd season of fights. But now my top 5. Number 1, mine are in order. Number 1, we have Bigfoot. Number 2, we have Wendigo. Number 3, Goatman. Number 4, Loveland Frogman. And number 5, El Chupacabra. Now, I'm going to start from 5 down, talking about why I like him.
5 up.
First, we got 5. 5 up. We got the Chupacabra. I just like, what really draws me towards this cryptid is the elusiveness and the just total mystery behind the cryptid. Because when we read the reports and did the research, there was hardly any sightings, and the only thing they can really attribute to him is the aftermath of his kills and his tormenting. And then he's just creepy looking when you do hear the reports of people seeing him off in the distance. So the whole mystery factor is what drew me to him. I also really liked the episodes that bumped it up. Number 4, Loveland Frogman, pants. Do I need to say more?
Yes.
No, nothing else.
I want to hear more.
What really brings it up for me with the Loveland Frogman is the whole meme between everybody. I was just dying when we were recording that episode with Devrin, and just going back, I kept bringing up the pants and the magic. I just love how out there the Frogman is, and totally like left field compared to a lot of cryptids. Because a lot of them are based like in a sort of reality, or they're based in Native American tales and folklore. But then you have
something supernatural, yeah.
Yeah, then you have the Frogman who's wearing fucking pants, standing on his legs. He's possibly casting magic or knows how to use a firework. And it's really just the meme that became the Loveland Frogman that really drew him to number 4 for me. Then I'll cover 3 and 2 really quick, because obviously you two had him on your list, so I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time going over them. But Goatman and Wendigo, my big draws are they were some of the earliest cryptids I've ever heard about, and I really liked them because of that. They're creepy, and the stories for them are just fucking phenomenal. I really like the lore behind them all, especially the Goatman mad scientist perspective on his origin. I really liked. And the Wendigo, I've always been into these Native American cryptids, and he's probably my favorite behind Skinwalker or right in front of Skinwalker. Those two are really close for me. And then we get to number 1, Bigfoot. He's just a classic. First cryptid I ever got into. One of the biggest cryptids in the world. I just love hearing the stories, doing the research. I love talking about him. He's just overall my favorite cryptid ever. I feel like maybe there was some injustice we did in the first episode towards him. We could have definitely done it better. But then I remember Bigfoot titties, which was just the stupidest thing we've ever talked about on the podcast, but I laugh every time I come to that part if I ever re-listen to the first episode. So those are my top 5.
I mean, that is the Red Power Ranger, aka Charizard guy's pick, so, you know, classic.
Fuck you. Those are both top tier. 1, a top tier Ranger. 2, a top tier Pokemon. 3, Bigfoot's the best. I'm
just saying, you have a type. It's Bigfoot.
I do have a type, and I'm not ashamed of it.
At least he owns up to it.
Right. What are we getting into next? Believability.
No. You skipped probably the part everybody wants to hear. Our least favorite cryptids that we've covered so far.
Yeah, because I can't guess what one of yours is.
Let's go, we'll go reverse order. I'll start us off. Once again, mine are in order from least favorite to
I'm gonna be honest,
slightly
our lists
less
are probably
least
gonna be
favorite.
pretty similar.
Yeah, before we hop into it, there weren't a lot of cryptids that I didn't like.
I only wrote down 4, so
I have 5, but the first couple I really don't like. The first 2 or 3 I really don't like, and the rest of them are I don't hate them, but they're definitely not close to my favorite. And actually I am gonna change some on the fly, re-looking at my list. So at number 1, we have Megaconda. At number 2, we have Mothman. At number 3, we have Oklahoma Octopus. At number 4, we have the Dobarku. And number 5, we have the Skunk Ape. So I'll tackle them like I did. I'm going to go from 5 to 1. So the Skunk Ape, I don't really hate him, but it's just a twist on Bigfoot that I'm really not a fan of. A lot of the believability, or a lot of the evidence, I should say, can just be tied to wild orangutans or just a wild exotic animal that's gotten loosed, or possibly just a regular Bigfoot that people are throwing these weird attributes at. So there's pretty much no creativity behind it, whether or not it's true. Number 4, the Dobarku, is just boring. It's basic. There's nothing special about it. Same thing with the Oklahoma octopus. Nothing special. It's just a big octopus in a man-made lake. It's strong, which is why it's not number 2 or 1. So I think that's kind of interesting, the fight we did. But besides that, there's just nothing that really interests me. The coolest thing is the Lost Tapes episode, but even going back and looking at that, it's not that good of an episode. Number 2, we got your boy Mothman. If you've been listening to the podcast up to this point, you already know Mothman is probably one of my least favorite because of believability, because a lot of the stories are just word of mouth, they're easily debunked. There's a photo that you can easily debunk. I debunked it on the podcast. And he's also just on number 2 because of the meme that I don't like Mothman. The only thing I like about him is the possibility that he could be a gargoyle. But besides that, I just do not buy into Mothman. He's not my favorite. And then we have number 1, Megaconda. It's another one of those problems where it's just such a boring cryptid. There's nothing interesting. The reason it's this low is because there are borderline no stories. There is one story. It is super boring, super generic. And because of that, the fight wasn't interesting either. Even when we threw him in the mashup and rehash episode, not an interesting cryptid to be in there. And so that's why he's my number 1. That's my top 5.
Bottom 5.
Okay. That's an interesting list. I have some on there too.
Yeah, like Andrew said, I think a lot of them are going to be similar.
What's funny is my whole list is the same.
Well, let's hear.
Some are moved around, but all 5 of mine are the exact same.
Doberchu is like the
Still
same
here.
point where I put him, that Matt has him. He's number 4 for me, but I'll just go on. Number 1, Skunk Ape. Number 2, Frogman. Number 3, Omni-Cook. And
Fuck you.
4 is Doberchu.
Fuck
and
you.
then 5 is Gatorman.
Well, run us through the list. There's one in specific I want to hear about.
Alright, well, first of all, Skunk Ape, for me, it's not because of believability. I still believe that it's an orangutan, and you can probably go back to thinking that is the Skunk Ape. It's just more of the hoaxer, what's his name? David, right?
Oh, yeah, David whatever the fuck. I didn't even bring that guy up, but fuck that guy.
But people like that kind of just ruin cryptids for me. And so that's why this cryptid's kind of just like a meh subject for me. I don't really care for that. I think he's a cool idea, but it's just not the move. Number 3, Omni-Cook. He's just way too powerful for me. It's something about making someone so overpowered that just kind of draws the attention from me away from him. So, Gatorman, very fucking boring. Just an alligator that's a part man. Big whoop. Doberchu, nah. There's nothing to say because he has nothing about him. And the reason I didn't put Megaconda on the list is because I still find Megaconda very interesting. The fact that he only has one story, kind of a tough subject, but I still like the cryptid in general. Now let's get into what Matt and Andrew are waiting for, Frogman.
Yeah, let's hear this bullshit.
Alright, first of all, I think he's one of the dumbest cryptids of all time, okay? Like, Mothman's better than him. So,
Fuck you.
What the fuck? This guy.
Mothman wouldn't be the best for
Stop
wouldn't be
capping.
above of him if it wasn't for hearing the gargoyle theory of him. That makes me believe him a lot more than Frogman.
Bro, pants.
Magic, bro, magic.
Firework, maybe.
And then you get the retards that talk like this, so it's kind of like big whoop, pants.
Bro, you're just small
Did you say
brain.
big whoop pants. Oh my god.
What
This
cryptid
guy.
wears pants? Okay, it's impressive.
He can't even name a cryptid that wears pants. See, this is why.
If you want to really get into it, Goat Man has worn pants before, so.
God has worn them before.
Here's the difference, though. He transforms with his pants on. Frogman puts his pants on.
No, he's actually... Never mind. I'm not going to talk about it.
Frogman just has.
You remember the story
big magic
from
energy, bro?
Goat Man, where he was stalking the one guy, but the one guy just thought it was some weird old man?
Fuck you. Don't bring that shit up.
Goat Man was wearing pants then.
You're gonna prove yourself right. And I don't like it.
And I just did. So, yeah. Frogman, kind of gay. I also just go with the meme of hating against him, so.
This guy just hates for the meme.
Yeah. Don't even say that. You already know Matt does the same thing for Mothman, too.
That's not a meme, though. I genuinely hate him.
I know, and I genuinely hate Frogman.
I just don't understand. It's like saying you generally hate, like, cats or dogs.
I do hate cats.
Like, God. Oh! Alright, well,
Exposed live.
Podcast.
Yep.
Alright, that's like saying you hate dogs, then.
I don't hate dogs.
Yeah, but you hate Frogman.
Yep.
So, well, anyway, before we start literally brawling right here.
Yeah, you better lock that fucking bedroom door, my guy.
Alright. Sounds like a deal.
Now we're into believability.
No,
you still gotta
we
go,
need to
my
hear
guy.
your least 5. We'll get to believability, and you're gonna go last, because that's what everybody's waiting to hear. So hit us with your top 5 least favorite.
Top 5 least favorite. I put Dobarku at number 1, Megaconda number 2, Octopus number 3, Mothman number 4, and Skunk Ape number 5. I mean, not much to say that hasn't already been said. Dobarku, I brought his story to the table, and I even thought it was uninteresting. He couldn't even kill, like, he got killed by just some normal human chick. Like,
No, he killed the normal human chick. The husband.
It was
he
the
got killed by
lumberjack.
some normal human dude. I don't know. It's a big otter. Like, I'm not saying otters aren't cool, but like a big one that eats people and then dies to them. I don't know. That's got nothing going for it in my book. Megaconda I think's cool because it's a big snake, and I think snakes are cool. But other than that, there's not really much to go on, so that's kind of rough. That episode as well kind of blew both of them out for me. So the Oklahoma octopus, like you said, he's just kind of a big octopus, and he drowns people. That's the only thing that really makes him a cryptid, is that he's in fresh water and drowns people.
And he's big.
Yeah. Mothman, I mean, Matt memes on him. I don't like hate him like Matt, but he's another one that's kind of unimpressive, especially compared to the full list that we've gone through so far. You know, it's just kind of, it's like the thing that doesn't put him up higher or lower in the list, I guess, is that he has the like future prediction thing going on in the gargoyle story. And then Skunk Ape, like you said, the Dave guy kind of really killed it for me. The David guy, that kind of sucked. Like, it almost seems like he just came up with the thing to try and be cool.
What a fucking pleb.
Yeah, you know, I don't think he just came up with it. I think he might have seen a Bigfoot, but I think the branding he does for it all in this quote-unquote research facility or whatever the fuck, I think that just blows it out of the water really heavily. But alright, Andrew, now we've covered all the top 5s. So
now it's on to believability.
We'll go Roger, then me, and then we'll finish it off with the bang with you. Roger, what's your number 1 most believable? And then we'll go with number 1 least believable.
Alright. Most believable, huh? Shit. Chupacabra, after thinking about it for a long time and listening to the episode and stuff, he is, like, one of the ones that's up there.
I guess it doesn't have to be a top 1, but just your top most believable.
My top most believable? I might have to go with the Wendigo or Ningen. For me, they are believable.
Oh, okay.
Wendigo, not really, like, the way they put it, it's more of like the mental illness of the Wendigo fever, whatever they call it. I do believe that's something that can infect people, and then that leads to cannibalism. So that's why it's more believable for me. Ninkin, I'm always like a sucker for government cover-ups, aliens, anything you name it. You say government cover-up, I'm like
9/11.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's not get too jet fuel can't melt steel beams on this podcast.
Yeah, no, we won't talk about the explosives planted at the base pillars.
We won't talk about what they're hiding at Area 51. But
Naruto run across all that.
But yeah, I'm a sucker for government cover-ups, so having that as a cryptid for it kind of really pulls it up for me. And then El Chupacabra, just having nothing to like pin it to those attacks is just kind of really weird for me.
All right, and your least believable?
Mothman, Doberchu, and Ami Cook. Had to remember his name for a sec.
Any particular
Mothman, I don't really see something come in from a gargoyle as much as I really like that aspect of it. I just don't see that happening. What'd I say? Doberchu?
Yeah,
Doberchu doesn't really have like a point where I'm like, oh, big beaver kill people? Yeah, that's real believable. I don't really see beavers being 15
Otter, bro.
feet
Big
and
otter.
killing someone. Same difference. In Ami Cook, if Ami Cook was real, we'd all be dead. So.
Very true. Alright, I'll take it away with we'll start with most believable. I'm gonna go Bigfoot, Chupacabra, and honestly, I'm gonna go Megaconda. So Bigfoot, obviously I'm a big advocate for. I don't believe all the stories are true, but I definitely think there's a lot of them that are really hard to explain and I buy into. And the sheer number of sightings are a bit ridiculous, but there's going to be some out there that I think could be true. And also it makes a little bit of sense if you go just another humanoid that's split to a different evolutionary path. I buy into that one. El Chupacabra, I'm right in the same boat with Roger. What really does it for me is that, I mean, this thing is never spotted besides the aftermath of what's left behind, and they can't explain what's doing this kind of stuff, and I really like that. It's really believable for me. And then while Megaconda is my least favorite we've covered, I can buy into it. Being a large snake in the environment it's in, it could sustain a size like that. Whether or not it's still alive to this very day is a little debatable, but I could definitely picture something like the Megaconda being a real possibility. Also, it has plenty of ground to hide in, being in the Amazon forest, so I can buy into that one. My least believable, probably going to be Goatman, Mothman, and the Loveland Frogman. Goatman, I love Goatman. He was number 3 in my top 5 cryptids, but it just doesn't make sense. None of the backstories make sense. I can't buy into any of them. So that just takes away the believability completely for me. What other one? Mothman. As everybody knows, besides it just being a meme, I really just don't buy into anything for the Mothman. I like the gargoyle theory, but I don't particularly give it any credit. And all the evidence is just easily disproved. And then the Frogman, while I love the Frogman and what we've come to appreciate about him,
Most of us.
pants. It just makes no sense. Like giant frogs wearing pants, possibly casting magic or using a firework. None of it adds up. it's more in line with just
Carrying
somebody
your
being
intestines
on
out your
drugs
butthole.
and
Yeah,
very
doesn't
sleep
make
deprived.
sense.
I mean, that's just epic. But yeah, let's hop to the grand event. Andrew, hit us with some believability.
All right. I also want to preface this by saying that both Roger and Matt do believe in cryptids, meaning that they think that the ones at the top of their list, they do believe, at least in some form, that they exist out there. And I myself am of the camp that none of these creatures actually exist, but that they're more stories that have been passed on. So I don't have like an actual, like, I don't think any of these are real. But as far as stories go, some of the more believable ones that have come up are like the Megaconda, where, like Matt had said earlier, it's got a lot of things to eat and a lot of ways to hide in that environment. I like the Chupacabra because that was a crazy event, and how that was happening to all those farms at this pretty much the same exact time was kind of crazy. And then like the Oklahoma octopus existing not in freshwater or in a lake or anything like that, but existing maybe out in the actual like Atlantic Ocean or something, or Pacific, would make a little bit more sense. Same thing with pretty much any large like I don't believe in the Dobarku, but any large animal usually. So, and then the lesser believable ones for me are like anything that has to do with any sort of religious ties, just because I'm not into the whole like demons and demonic stuff very much at all. So like Goatman, Jersey Devil, that stuff I'm not too fond of, and a lot of that just seems like purely story and nothing else. But that's about it for me.
I also want to point out one of the most popular ones that I find really hard to believe is the Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah, that one has very little bearing.
It's
in
also
reality.
just has like terrible
Yeah, I mean,
history with hoaxes and stuff, so
it's that and just the marketing and the real push to make it this marketable creature takes it away from me heavily.
Yeah, it's the way that they're pushing it so much. It really hurts it.
And it's similar to Bigfoot, but there's Bigfoot evidence that I believe in that pushes it so that I don't really factor in a lot of the marketing they do and the social push for him. So it definitely lessens it a lot with the proof that I take faith in, to say the least. All right, now we've spent a while talking about cryptids, our favorites, our least favorites, what we believe in and what we don't. So we're going to kick it back to something a little bit more casual and talk about the podcast itself, or things to that extent. So let's talk about how we first got into cryptids. I'll start us off here. I don't know, maybe it's between me or Roger, but I think I was the first one to really get big into cryptids. Obviously, I heard about Bigfoot for a long time, especially from my mom, because she's a big Bigfoot person. But I remember just growing up watching like the Finding Bigfoot show. That was a big one. Seeing all the merchandise, while it wasn't as big as it is today, there was still a lot of it out there. And then after the Bigfoot stuff, another big factor that really took it away from me was listening to YouTube stories and people telling stories of other people online. That's when I really started getting into like Wendigo, Skinwalker, a lot of the Native American ones. And then more recently, I started working a night job, and you can only listen to so much music over and over again. So I started delving into podcasts, and I found a lot of podcasts talking about cryptids. And that really got me back into the whole cryptid thing, just hearing them debate the cryptids, talk about their favorites, talk about stories. That's what really pushed me to enjoy cryptids again, and honestly what brought us here to do what we do now. But yeah, I've been into cryptids for a while, and it's a pretty crazy ride. I definitely enjoy them. I enjoy the stories, believability, all that shit, especially what we do now. Anybody else want to take it away?
Angie, you want to go first, or should I? Alright.
You should probably go first.
So for me, I kind of started out with aliens and just believing that. And so it started off with me and my one friend in kindergarten watching Signs, and that got me like hella scared of him, but still like interested in him, I guess. And so I just watched a bunch of videos on YouTube of like alien sightings and stuff. There was this one of like they had like an alien in their basement and they would like throw food out for it and stuff. And that one's just so vividly in my mind. And then as it went on in the years, like when I was like 11 to 12 and 13, I got into like creepypastas, Jeff the Killer, Slenderman, you name it, I probably fucking watched it. But then
That was back when we got super heavy into creepypastas.
And then I started watching the Lost Tapes. I think it was me and you, Matt. Wasn't me, you, and then someone else. And we watched the Lost Tapes.
Fuck yeah.
And so that got me in the cryptids, and I was like, whoa, what the fuck is this? This isn't creepypastas. This is like actual shit people like believe in real life. And so that got me in big into them. Goatman was like the first big one where I was like, whoa, what the fuck is this thing? And I remember everyone on their YouTube videos, whenever they're trying to make it like a creepy video, they would have the Goatman on their like screen or like for their little fucking thumbnail. Wendigo was a big one because I watched Pet Sematary, the original one. And then Wendigo was a big part of that. So then I read a little bit of the book, figured out Wendigo was a big part of it. And then I just started researching them, too. So I've always been into them, so I always just kind of learn more about them.
Yeah. So, as far as cryptids go, my story's not that crazy. I know when I was really young, Matt was into, like, Bigfoot and stuff, and we did watch the Lost Tapes. I was only ever when I was at your house, though, and it was only ever a few times. So, I think I forgot the cryptids even existed until pretty recently, like a year before we started the podcast, when Matt started talking more and more about Bigfoot, because he went on like a super deep cryptid binge right when he started working at his job now. And then I think that's when I started like, oh yeah, cryptids exist, and like that's a thing that is constantly going on. And then once we started doing the podcast, obviously it's like, oh, it's gotten me into like the researching and all the stories, and I think that's my favorite part now, is the stories, and like all the offhand accounts that people have and stuff like that, and how it's just over time all these different things have come up. Like how many cryptids there are is amazing to me. But yeah, I don't have that big of a like background in it, so.
All right, I want to interject a thing into our little repertoire we have here. Creepiest Lost Tapes episodes. Are the episode you find the most creepy? Maybe not now, because it's obviously all fake now, but back in the day when we watched it and you could think it was real.
Okay.
Creepiest one.
Do you remember which one there was, the kids that were like skateboarding in that like
Yes.
Which one was that?
I think that was the Thunderbird.
That was the Thunderbird.
Was it?
Yeah.
It was the skateboarding, and then it goes to like nighttime and they're still skateboarding.
It always goes
and
to
doesn't one of them like
nighttime.
hurt themselves?
Yeah. That's probably the scariest one for me, just because I remember as a kid, like, I went home after that and I couldn't sleep for like 3 nights.
Alright, here's the fucking creepiest one. I literally could not watch this episode if the sun was down, and I could not watch it alone because of how much it scared me. The fucking vampire one.
Oh,
where
God.
the vampires are in the
The
basement.
vampire one was so fucking creepy. I don't know if it's the creepiest one for me.
Actually, I'm gonna rescind my previous statement. You showed me the vampire one while it was like sunlight out, and I couldn't sleep that night. That's true. I was scared as hell.
Like, I could get through most of the episodes fine, a little creeped out, but that one was the fucking scariest one. And I know I can remember the 2 scenes that creeped me out the most is when the electrician is in the basement and you can just see the vampires every once in a while. And then when the vampires break out of the basement and they start flooding the house, That scared the fuck out of me. It took me a few tries to just make it through the full episode on my own, with the sun still out.
Dover Demon, I remember watching that when I was a kid, and that scared the shit out of me. And it was only because of that scene where he flips the camera around and he's like, oh, I have night vision, and then fucking Dover Demon's right behind him and he's looking right at the camera. I couldn't look out my window at night when I watched that. The vampire one was pretty terrifying. I think I put that number 3, but number 2 is probably the fucking werewolf one. I hated that one. It was more of like they were finding all this stuff, and they're like, oh wait, the man's not the fucking not the werewolf because he's dead. And then it's the camera guy is right next to the fucking chick that was like, oh my god, help me, something happened to him. And then she fucking, you could see her slowly turn into a werewolf, and then she fucking, the whole screen goes black and it's all shaky and everything, and that was just fucking terrifying to me.
There's one more that came to memory, and it's the Bigfoot one. And it mainly takes place with this camp ranger in this cabin, and all throughout the day and night, she's just being terrorized with this Bigfoot before she's killed. And then there was a weird one where they're on a boat, and there's a Yeti that they're transporting, and it gets loose and just fucking goes ham. That one's not the creepiest, but it's just so weird that they're transporting a Yeti across the ocean on a boat.
That's another one. I know there's a couple of them. The Wendigo one was pretty terrifying to me. I remember the one guy looking back, and he has like blood all over his fucking face, and they're like, what the fuck are you doing? He's eating like a squirrel or something. And then at night, they're like in a cave.
They did a Goat Man one, didn't they?
No, they didn't. I wish they did.
Or is that the Wendigo one I'm thinking of?
That's the Wendigo one.
Well, I'm sure we should do a special episode where we review lost tapes and some of the shit that we find the creepiest or funniest.
We should.
But before we go...
That'd probably be a pretty good Patreon one.
Yeah, before we go on a tirade, let's move on to thoughts on the first few episodes of the podcast. I don't know if you guys have listened to them in a while.
I have. I listened to them recently.
I have.
But I just want to go on a tirade for the first one, because that's the one I've listened to the most recently. And it is just so unprofessional and so all over the place. It's a good episode, but like, we have no structure. We're just cutting in and out when we're going over the history. We don't even cover the stats for both cryptids until we finished all the other stuff with them. And this is also the part where I just wrote stats myself, and then we changed them as we went through, instead of just discussing and debating on the stats one at a time.
I remember that. You were like, yeah, this is what I wrote down, a rough thing of, yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
You see, that's kind of okay with me, because that was like our first episode. We were trying to get a footing of it, so obviously it wasn't going to be more professional like this one is, or how we are now. So I kind of get behind that one. I think that was still a great episode. I still loved it. The only thing I'd have against that episode was the matchup. Not really fair at all.
Oh, yeah. No, not at all.
Second one, like I said, one of my favorites. Had some great stories to it. Third one, that's all I have to say about it. That's all. The
Pretty
third
much.
one. 4, great episode, and 5, a great episode.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. I think that the first batch was actually pretty good. I think that as far as it goes, the third one was definitely the weakest, and we didn't really have a schedule down. We didn't have anything written down for that one, really, and that just kind of, it showed that we weren't prepared. It was still in the phase where we hadn't hit the 5th episode, so we didn't have as much merit into the podcast yet. Like, we hadn't put our full effort into it yet, and we were still recording in your room and stuff like that. So but I think that we have to start somewhere, and the first 5 were definitely still pretty solid as far as episodes go. Like, obviously we've upgraded a bit since we got to here, and I think one thing that I really miss about the earlier episodes that we've kind of dropped off on is how we used to compare the cryptids to kind of like a D&D class, and we don't don't do that at all anymore. And that's one of the things I kind of miss. But other than that, yeah.
Yeah, no, we've definitely dropped off. I think for me, when I think about the class stuff, I just never remember to bring it up.
I think we bring it up, just not as much as we did. We're not like, oh, this is this class versus this class. We're kind of like, oh, yeah, he's kind of like this.
Yeah, no, I know we did it in the last episode. We remembered to bring it up, but I don't think we did it in any of the previous episodes, or at least the last 2 or 3.
No, we've done it in some.
We definitely didn't do it for many of the water ones, but we didn't do it for like Jersey Devil, Thunder.
We did it for the Rake and Thicky Toby. We did do it for them.
But that was a special.
Did we do it for the Rake?
I'm pretty sure we did.
We did. Yep.
I don't remember that.
But what
My other big gripe with the first episode is that, like you said, Andrew, we didn't have much merit to it. The dedication wasn't there. And so that's the one episode where we took like a full month between episodes. And I'm pretty sure the only reason we came back was because, like, after that month, I was like, oh shit, the podcast has a good amount of downloads. Maybe we should keep doing it. And then we did. Whoops.
Yeah, that's when you were just like, I think we should record a podcast, because you had been listening to a lot of podcasts, so you just wanted to record something.
Yeah, no. And then I saw nobody was really, like, doing what we do now. So it's like, okay, this is a good idea. We can put a different spin on all the podcasts I've been listening to. So we might see a little bit of success. Which, now looking back, is an understatement.
Yeah, oh yeah. But I think that one of the funniest things to me about that is that in the description, you say we have an email address now. Which is funny because it's become almost a staple to have the email read out in the beginning.
Yeah, no, I mean, when I first made it, I wasn't really dedicated to it, so I was like, whatever, I'll just use, like, my personal email address that I usually use for everything, and it's whatever. And then we started getting more into it. I was like, okay, I should make a dedicated email for this, just in case. And now it's led us to talking with some cool people that had cool feedback and some other things. So it was definitely a good thing that happened.
Yeah.
But besides that, yeah, I think I'm with you guys. Overall, I think the first 5 were pretty good. And honestly, that's where all my favorite episodes are right now, are the first 5.
Okay, maybe not the last one specifically, but Jersey Devil versus Thunderbird was pretty fun for me. I enjoyed that one quite a bit. I just wish my audio quality didn't suck because I was an idiot, but...
Well, that's just a given.
Yeah, that was a big oof. No, yeah, I'm glad we're getting back and just doing regular cryptids and not specified cryptids, because it's a lot more fun and a lot more freeing to be able just to pick 2 and be like, okay, let's do this. This is going to be fun.
All right, well, we've gotten over quite a bit in this episode as far as, like, our favorite cryptids, least favorite cryptids, believability, how we got into them, the thoughts on our first episodes. The only other thing that we might want to go over is how we've upgraded so far, the studio, and what we've gone through.
Yeah, no, I mean, in a way, we've kind of come back to our roots of the podcast. Because
in a way, yeah.
First 4 episodes, we were just in my room, 1 microphone, dying of heat strokes.
I remember it was you in your gaming chair, then it was me in the fucking little bar stool, and then Andrew on the bed. That's exactly how it was.
That's classic. I think I'll still look back on that, like, years from now and be like, wow, I remember when I was just me on the bed, Matt in the gaming chair, and Roger on the bar stool.
The funniest part about those first few is that the audio levels for everybody were kind of just all over the place.
I was way too close to the mic. Roger was way too far away from the mic. That was funny.
Yeah. Now we're all, like, got our own, and so we're up close and we can adjust the individual audio levels if we need to, but it just sounds way better.
Yeah, I mean, so what was the first upgrade we did? We went into the garage. We got some soundproofing.
Gathered the studio together.
Yeah, then we had our episode 5 with Devrin, and we were in the studio, but there was still a little bit of echo. Not much.
Yeah, fuck that soundproofing film, bro.
Yeah, that was the worst. Like, I don't know if it was the walls or what, but that stuff did just not
I'm like
stay
90% sure it was just so hot, and there is like no cooling in the garage that the adhesive just wore off, and so the foam would not stay up whatsoever.
probably. And then the next step was that we got the blankets, and so that dampened, and the carpet. Or
Yeah. Well, we
no,
had the
got
carpet when
before
we first moved into the studio.
But then we got the blankets, so that cut that space in half and also dampened anything bouncing off that side. So that was pretty good.
yeah, that was a good upgrade.
Then it just started becoming unbearably hot. Like
And then
I said
we had
on
also bought
other
the
episode.
mics at that time, and I remember we were going to record a series for Patreon, and I struggled for like an hour and a half just to learn that you can't use multiple USB microphones for one computer.
Yeah, that was.
I remember
pretty
sitting
rough.
there, and we were just
And-
like, so are we going to do this, or...
Yeah, and then afterwards we came inside because it was so hot out there, and we were like, all right, so Matt looks like he's trying to figure out a way to do this, and then we were there for like an hour in the kitchen just.
It was
what's
literally
going on?
Matt just sitting on the computer, and then me and Andrew on our phones looking at memes. Good
And
times.
I kept trying to go. Even after like we pseudo gave up, I still tried to get it to work, and I could not get it to work whatsoever.
Yeah, and so then we went back to single mic, still in the garage. We did that for a couple more episodes, and then a couple more Patreon things. And then finally we just committed to it, and here we are now. We've got all of our USB mics hooked up to different monitors.
Yeah,
We're all recording our audio individually.
we pretty
and,
much gave up on the studio because it's just too fucking hot outside right now for the studio to be a realistic possibility to use.
I mean, obviously, we'll probably go back to it once it cools down, but
well,
we'll see.
I don't know about
We'll
that.
see in the future.
It depends on what comes in the future. I think there will still be upgrades that'll happen in the future. We'll go further from here, but those upgrades are probably going to be fewer and farther between as our production quality goes up. So
Yeah, and I don't think we need too many upgrades right now. I mean, obviously, maybe a little
as
bit
far
of
as our budget goes,
soundproofing.
yeah,
A little bit more soundproofing would be nice. Maybe getting better quality mics. But there's nothing we need to rush to, I don't think. I think we've hit a pretty good stride at the moment.
yeah. So most of our episodes from here on out are going to sound like this, at least for a little while.
But yeah, is there anything else we want to talk about before we close this special thank you episode out?
No, I mean, regularly scheduled programming is going to resume
Next
what?
episode. So today is on recording. It's Monday, August the 9th. Episodes come out every other Wednesday. So we're going to have another, well, it'll be a special episode, special fight. That'll be coming out the 25th. So be looking forward to that.
And by then, we'll have a major change will happen, so we'll be able to talk about that as well.
Yeah. We didn't do it, and it's the end of the podcast, or nearing the end. But as always, these episodes are brought to you in part by our Patreon. What can you find over on Patreon, Andrew?
You can find special episodes that we record as well as our after hours, which are happening after every single episode, an extra hour. Just us talking about things that we like. Games, movies, anime, all that stuff. And then you've got our holiday episodes, which we're still one strong on that. As well as a link to the Discord.
Link to the Discord. Eventually it'll be back up.
A link to the Discord as soon as Matt remembers to actually put a valid one up. Was there one other thing? I always forget a single
There's
thing.
the Cryptid vs. Caverns episodes that we do. Right now, we only have one.
I am hoping to fix that. By the time the next episode of Cryptid vs. Cryptid comes out, I'm hoping that we will have Cryptids vs. Caverns episode 2 out. Or at least the week after. And there's always more to come. There's more series I think about that I want to do over there. And if you enjoy listening to us talk, throw us on in the background when you're listening to our Patreon. How much is it a month, Andrew?
$3. $3. Everyone's got $3. Come on. I work a minimum wage job and I've got $3 that I can pay every month. I mean, you could stop at a certain point if you wanted to, but like we said, we're continuously adding to that thing. So you're going to be getting more content for the same price, one tier, every single month. So all I'm saying is it sounds like a pretty good deal to me.
It is a great deal. And I do have another big plan coming up for the podcast. There's one that we all know about, and there's a secret one I have in my back pocket. But eventually, everybody will know. Until then, be looking forward to it, because I think it's really cool.
We've got plans for the future, so be looking out.
Yeah, and I think that brings us to the end of this special thank you episode. So, of course, thank you for over 1,000 downloads to our podcast. We didn't really talk about it a whole bunch, but it's crazy to think that we've hit this point in a matter of like 6 or 7 months now.
Yeah, this is insane. Bro.
Just thinking about every time we look at the downloads, like the first initial one I saw, I think it was like 60. And it was Matt just sitting in the living room, and he's like, yo, we hit 60 downloads. And I was like, what? So that was a big one. And then 100 was a big one. And just going through all of those was just a, like, mind-blowing thing.
Yeah, as the hundreds racked up, it just started to become more and more almost unreal. Like, it was like, wow, this is a thing, you know? I don't know. It's just, we do this because of you guys, you know? If you guys weren't here to support us, download the episodes, email us, we wouldn't be doing this, but it's just, the support's insane.
Like Andrew said, if it wasn't for all the support, we definitely wouldn't be doing this. We just appreciate it so much. It is unbelievable, the support that we've gotten.
So I guess this is possible to viewers like you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the official end of the episode. Be sure to share this with your friends and family. Leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and the Apple Store. We will read the reviews out live on air.
I've already told you how to get me to read your review out, so there's a little bit of a cheat code you can do for that. Anyway, I think that means we're wrapping it up, so until next time, see ya.
Later.
Goodbye.